Hi everyone, and thanks for your interest in this webinar, Preparing Your Rural Region for Build to Scale, presented by the Center on Rural Innovation and Rural Innovation Strategies, Inc. I'm Matt Dunn, the founder and executive director of the Center on Rural Innovation. Since our founding in 2017, the CORI team has worked closely with the U.S. Economic Development Administration to help advance economic opportunities in rural communities. This work has included supporting communities applying to EDA's Build to Scale Venture Challenge. As part of our partnership with EDA, I'm excited to share this webinar, which will summarize what your community should consider when deciding if you are ready to apply for EDA's Build to Scale Venture Challenge. I will also share how you can increase your chances of building a compelling and competitive proposal. There's lots of important information here, so let's get started. One note before I start. The content of this recording was prepared by Rural Innovation Strategies, Inc. as part of a cooperative agreement with EDA's Research and National Technical Assistance Program. On the docket for today, I'll tell you a little about the Center on Rural Innovation and Rural Innovation Strategies, Inc. From there, I will share details about how EDA's Build to Scale Venture Challenge, and importantly, why rural regions should pursue this award. And the core focus of our presentation will be discussing best practices for rural communities considering whether to apply for the Venture Challenge. Let's start with a little about CORI and our sibling organization, RISI, which contracts with CORI to deliver programming. CORI is a nonprofit action tank founded in 2017. And our core mission is to advance inclusive rural prosperity in communities across the United States through digital economy ecosystems that support scalable entrepreneurship and tech job creation. CORI was created to address the vast rural opportunity gap that emerged in the aftermath of the Great Recession. As this chart of employment growth shows, rural economies never recovered from the downturn, while metro counties did recover and continued to gain jobs. And as we saw last year, COVID-19 caused massive job loss everywhere, but this simply pushed rural places even further behind on the road to recovery. So how did this rural opportunity gap emerge? The first cause was automation, especially of traditionally rural industries like manufacturing, agriculture, forestry, and tourism. Between 2001 and 2015, manufacturing employment, which was twice as prevalent in rural communities as compared to urban places, fell by 30%. The second force at play was globalization, which led to higher-end manufacturing going overseas, while digital jobs associated with that manufacturing remained in the US, but concentrated in urban places. And the third cause was the 30-year decline in rural entrepreneurship, now at historically low levels. This drop in entrepreneurship was driven in part by a lack of capital, as less than 1% of all venture capital goes to rural places. These factors have created a new economy, one where the future is digital. From 1997 to 2017, the digital economy grew more than 4 times faster than the overall economy. Solving rural America's economic crisis has to include harnessing technology for local and sustainable wealth creation. As part of our work, we support communities to produce more scalable tech startups because scalable businesses backed by venture capital see employment growth 8 times higher than non-venture-backed companies. These scalable tech startups and other tech companies can produce digital jobs that pay well. The median annual wage for computer and IT occupations was $88,000 in May 2019, far higher than the median wage for all occupations, which was less than $40,000 a year. Despite the digital economy's rapid growth, rural places have been too often left out. Rural America accounts for 15% of the nation's workforce, yet only 5% of the nation's tech workers. Our goal at CORI is to level this disparity so that 15% of tech jobs are located in rural communities across the country. And given what we know about the power of scalable tech startups to drive digital employment, We're focused on helping rural communities build strong digital entrepreneurship ecosystems. EDA's Build to Scale Venture Challenge is a powerful tool for this work. Our Rural Innovation Network is a growing consortium of 20 communities across 17 states that are building digital economy ecosystems. These communities represent a diverse cross-section of rural America and are each at various stages of digital economy development. Many rural communities have won Build to Scale awards, including 7 of our network communities, and each are examples of the power it can have to foster economic growth. We'll dive into some of these communities later. But before we do that, let me share more about the Build to Scale competition. EDA's Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, or OIE, aims to empower communities so that entrepreneurs can launch companies, scale technologies, and create the jobs of tomorrow. OIE's signature program is Build to Scale, a portfolio of grant competitions that further technology-based economic development initiatives that accelerate high-quality job growth, create more economic opportunities, and support the future of the next generation of industry-leading companies. If you're familiar with other EDA funding, it's important to note that Build to Scale is a national grant competition, separate from EDA's regional opportunities. There are multiple funding streams within Build to Scale, but today we're focusing on the Venture Challenge. If you're interested in learning more about other funding opportunities, I highly recommend you visit OIE's website. Venture Challenge grants support entrepreneurship and accelerate company growth in different places across the country. Projects funded through the Venture Challenge are place-based approaches that leverage local assets and fill ecosystem gaps to increase scalable tech entrepreneurship in the region. For example, Platteville, Wisconsin was awarded a grant in 2020 to develop a pipeline of entrepreneurs, accelerate ventures into scalable tech businesses, and inspire a culture of innovation. The Venture Challenge awards grants to intermediary organizations such as accelerators, universities, and nonprofits supporting new business ventures that meet the following criteria. These startups need to be scalable by nature, challenging the status quo of established markets, commercializing technologies, and furthering job creation. There are also specific terms to Venture Challenge grants, including a 1-to-1 match funding requirement, a grant period of 3 years, 2 available funding levels, Build, which is for projects requesting less than $750,000, and Scale for projects between $750,000 and $1.5 million. There is also a requirement that funds support organizations supporting scalable entrepreneurs, not the entrepreneurs themselves, companies, individuals, or construction costs. Because many rural communities have been left out of the innovation economy, we too often hear this misconception that funding opportunities focused on scalable entrepreneurship are not for us as a rural community. But we know that's simply not true. Rural communities should be applying for these grants. In fact, the Build to Scale Venture Challenge has a 40% designation to support rural communities. Because Build to Scale has grown from around $10 million in 2014 to $38 million in 2021, $15.2 million is available to support rural communities in spurring scalable tech startups in their regions. Also on the topic of misconceptions, 50% of the awardees from 2020 were from first-time applicants. So don't let the fact that you haven't tried before stop you from putting your hat in the ring this year. And even applicants who don't win aren't out of the running in the future. OIE provides feedback to applicants on how to improve. We know repeat applicants end up winning the award, including our Rural Innovation Network community of Independence, Oregon, which applied in 2020 for the second time after finding a partner to assist with their proposed accelerator, and they received funding. Whether it be Independence, Oregon, or other communities applying for this award, we've seen how Build to Scale can be absolutely transformative to rural communities. Through our work with members of our Rural Innovation Network, we have seen the transformative effects of receiving a Build to Scale grant. And as you can see, no two communities are the same or have the same experience. If you want to learn more about these communities and their projects, be sure to download this presentation after the webinar. To dive deeper into what's possible in rural communities and spark some ideas about how this federal award can accelerate community growth, let's look at the stories of a group of rural Build to Scale winners that Corey has supported. In 2019, the 20 Fathoms Innovation Hub in Traverse City, Michigan, received a Build to Scale grant to create an accelerator program for entrepreneurs focused on health technology and innovation. They've since been working hard to build mentorship networks, professional services for entrepreneurs, and collaborative working spaces to foster a culture of tech and innovation. The results have been beyond impressive. They have coordinated entrepreneurship support for scalable tech startups with 50 other local organizations, and in the past 2 years alone have supported more than 47 startups that have created more than 130 jobs and raised $21 million of investment in their region. Let's look at another Build to Scale award recipient from 2019, Cape Girardeau, Missouri. The Marquette Tech District Foundation, in partnership with Codify, also received a Build to Scale award to develop a regional innovation hub and support rural startups. Their application is another inspiring example of what's possible for rural places with a little bit of imagination, grit, and federal investment. To date, the Marquette Tech District Foundation and Codify have supported more than 70 tech startups through their 2019 Build to Scale grant. And since their founding in 2014, they have created more than 180 jobs and helped companies raise $20 million in equity. As with 20 Fathoms in Traverse City, Build to Scale funding has been crucial to their recent growth, providing the resources to develop their innovation hub and support entrepreneurs to address industry-identified problems using technology. In addition to Independence, Oregon, 2 other Rural Innovation Network communities received Build to Scale awards specifically in 2020, Platteville, Wisconsin, and Waterville, Maine. Platteville received $540,000 in federal investment for the Idea Hub, which will build a pipeline of entrepreneurs, accelerating ventures into scalable tech businesses, and inspiring a culture of innovation to produce 15 scalable technology businesses in 3 years. Their project design is place-based, deliberately leveraging local assets like the tech talent coming out of their university system and tackling regional challenges, such as their historically low rates of entrepreneurship, to inspire more risk-taking. Waterville, Maine received almost $600,000 in Build to Scale funding to create Dorigo Labs, housing a startup accelerator, cultivating a mentor network, and facilitating access to investment capital for local companies. Their project centers around strong partnerships in the region, including Brick's co-working and innovation space that runs summer startup programs out of a beautifully redeveloped old mill by the river, and collaboration with 3 post-secondary institutions, Colby College, Mid-Maine Technical Center, and Thomas College. Hopefully these stories will inspire you to realize that your rural community could be a 2021 Venture Challenge grantee as well, offering the place you love the same kinds of transformational economic impact. So let's dig in to how you can make that happen in your own community. To start, you need to make sure you are eligible to apply. Any of the following are eligible applicant entities: a state, an Indian tribe, a city or other political subdivision of a state, an entity whose application is supported by a state or a political subdivision of a state. This means one that's received a letter of support from a government entity. And that is a nonprofit organization, an institution of higher education, a public-private partnership, a science or research park, a federal laboratory, a venture development organization or an economic development organization or similar entity, or a consortium of any of the aforementioned entities. If your organization doesn't fit these eligibility requirements, but you still think your community should pursue a project, you may want to explore finding another organization in your community that can take the lead. Once you know you're eligible, you'll want to start thinking about your team's skills and experience. At the beginning of this process, you'll want to figure out the resources you have to execute on the grant application. A good way to get a sense is asking yourself these 3 questions. Do I have someone on staff with experience to write federal grants? Do I have at least 5 to 15 hours per week of staff capacity to dedicate to writing this proposal and getting partners and match funding on board? Do I have grant and/or financial reporting experience on my team? Now, let's dive into why each of these questions is really important. First, if you do have someone on your staff with federal grant experience, that's a great start. You'll want to have them read EDA's 2021 Notice of Funding Opportunity carefully to develop an application that hits the key points. You should also visit the Build to Scale program's applicant resource page for useful tutorials, templates, and checklists. And if you don't have any grant experience, you can consider asking local partners who have federal grant experience to help review your proposal. Remember, EDA representatives can't proactively work with you on your proposal for this competition. They can conduct a technical review, which is a really great idea, but are unable to provide feedback on anything that would affect the competitiveness of the application. Next, think about what you will need from a capacity perspective, whether you have someone on your team who can dedicate the time needed to do this process well. Ideally, we recommend having at least 2 clear roles on your team. One person to hold the pen as a grant writer, and another to focus on partnership development to meet match and letter of support requirements. If you don't have capacity on your team for this, you can find a community partner you can leverage to help build a strong grant development team. Often, economic development districts or a local nonprofit or post-secondary institution can provide this support. This next capacity-focused question is super important. You will want to identify who on your team has grant and/or financial reporting experience. If you know who that will be, then include this capacity in your application, your budget, and your staffing narrative. The EDA wants to know that if you're awarded a grant, you'll be able to complete the reporting, track metrics, request disbursements, and manage the grant according to the required procedures. If you don't have someone on staff with this skill set, consider including this capacity in your project budget. This shows the EDA reviewers that you will be able to administer the grant effectively. The next questions you'll want to tackle are about whether your project is aligned with the program. First, how does your project concept meet the goals of the Venture Challenge program? In EDA's words, the Venture Challenge supports programs that build new business ventures in your region that are scalable by nature, challenging the status quo of established markets, commercializing technologies, and furthering job creation. You're on track if your project meets these goals. What's left is to make sure your project narrative clearly makes the case for how you'll leverage your regional assets and how you will address barriers that hold entrepreneurs back from building scalable tech startups. If you're not sure if your project meets these goals, then take a step back to reflect. The Venture Challenge is designed to support the creation of scalable tech startups that produce quality local jobs. The key is that the ventures supported have to be scalable, not just tech-enabled small businesses. For example, a Venture Challenge would not support the incubation of a small business like a taco truck. We all love taco trucks, and they're great for entrepreneurial ecosystems, but that is a local business serving a local market. It also wouldn't support helping a local taco truck get a website, but it would support the incubation of a software platform that produces a website and app to increase the productivity for all taco trucks around the world. Next, you want to determine if your project concept aligns with one of two venture challenge funding levels. We already mentioned the two levels, build and scale. Build projects may be piloting new solutions or bringing a solution to a new community. These requests can't exceed $750,000 over 3 years. Scale projects are designed to scale existing successful initiatives. These requests have to be between $750,000 and $1.5 million over 3 years. Both programs require a 1-to-1 match. We will cover these match requirements more later on. Last, you'll want to make sure the outcomes of your project are the types of outcomes the Venture Challenge is looking to achieve. Reviewing past winners' executive summaries on the OIE website can help bring out themes in the types of outcomes that are being measured. You can also refer to Appendix B from the 2021 NOFO and use that as an inspiration for metrics. Generally, the Venture Challenge is looking for projects that drive new, high-quality job creation through the incubation and acceleration of scalable startups. All outcomes and measures should be connected in some way with those two objectives. Once you know your project is aligned with the goals of the Venture Challenge, you will need to actually complete your grant application. To write a successful application, you need to know what success looks like. Understanding the evaluation criteria is essential to success here. And understanding will help you align your proposal with what reviewers are looking for. This year, proposals will be reviewed against 6 equally weighted criteria. For each criterion, reviewers award applicants up to 7 points, with 0 meaning does not address, and 7 meaning addresses with 100% success. Here are the 6 criteria, and you want to remember these. Ecosystem resources and assets, proposed solutions, use of partner entities, measurable goals and sustainability, budget and staffing plan, and alignment with Build to Scale program goals. We recommend that you write your application and you keep the evaluation criteria close at hand for reference. We have made this presentation available for download and have linked to the Notice of Funding Opportunity so you can dive deeper on these evaluation criteria. You might also want to ask a community partner to review your project narrative draft and score your application against the criteria. Sometimes an external eye is the best way to get ideas on how to improve. Successful build-to-scale applications are place-based, so your project concept should be explicitly based on your region's assets, gaps, and opportunities. In your application, you'll need to clearly show how your project will achieve the intended outcomes by capitalizing on your specific regional assets and filling local gaps. Don't leave it to the reviewers to guess how these puzzle pieces fit together. Instead, make crystal clear the connections between your regional assets and gaps and your intended outcomes. Also, keep in mind that you shouldn't spend a ton of space in your proposal dwelling on how much your region needs help. The key is to focus on the opportunity and how much impact EDA's funding would have in your community. Region also matters when rural places specifically are applying to Build to Scale. Because of Build to Scale's 40% funding designation to support rural economies, you'll want to highlight very early in your application if the region you're serving counts as rural. For it to count, 50% or more of the served region has to be rural according to the Census Bureau's urban-rural classification. And this is really important because it may be different from other rural definitions even for other federal grant programs. The technical definition is that rural refers to all population, housing, and territory not included within an urban area, including urbanized areas of 50,000 or more people and urban clusters of at least 2,500 and less than 50,000 people. For more information on the Census Bureau's definition of rural, we recommend you check out their website linked on this slide. To be clear, Venture Challenge is open to both urban and rural regions, so all are welcome to apply. A strong approach to regional alignment also involves knowing the EDA landscape in your region. There are 3 key things to consider. First, know what projects the EDA has funded nearby. Knowing this can help make sure that what you're proposing complements but doesn't duplicate prior efforts. Reaching out to your local or nearby economic development district or EDA-supported university center is a good way to learn more about EDA's work in your area. Second, find out whether your region has an economic development district, or EDD, by visiting the EDA's Economic Development Directory and selecting your state. You will find a list of EDDs with website links that indicate the boundaries of their districts within your state. If your region has an economic development district, you should reach out to your EDD and share your project plans. They can be a great ally and source of a letter of support that demonstrates regional alignment to your reviewers. If you don't have an EDD, we suggest approaching other regional planning entities or economic development organizations for letters of support or even match dollars. Third, reach out to your economic development representative, or EDR. Building a relationship with your economic development representative helps in both the short and long term. While EDRs can't provide strategic advice once the build-to-scale competition is open, they can be a great resource for technical questions. If you choose not to apply in 2021, we recommend you approach your EDR after the deadline to discuss how to build a future project in your region that aligns with build-to-scale objectives. The final part of regional alignment revolves around strong partnerships. Successful applications have local partners aligned and supportive of their project and the outcomes it will produce for the region. Having compelling custom letters of support from regional organizations shows the EDA there is strong local partnership support. You can help partners as they write these letters by giving them some key tips on what to include, but each letter should be unique and should describe the relationship of the organization and their role in the project. Generic template letters do not convey true support of a project, and that's important to remember. And don't forget that letters of support from organizations providing match have to clearly state how the partner is engaged in the project. Finally, you need clarity and alignment on your project budget and potential match letters because all projects require a one-to-one match. Every community has different partners, so there's no one-size-fits-all approach. To find your ideal partners, we recommend you start by making a list of key entities in your community that might be able to provide match dollars. This could include post-secondary institutions, private businesses, other nonprofits, foundations, and state funding opportunities, among other sources. Match dollars are held to the same reporting requirements as federal dollars, so let any match partners know that they will be required to report out on their match to you. With your partners lined up, you then need to be confident that you can raise 50% of the project cost as match, including both in-kind and cash, for project-specific activities. In-kind match can take different forms, including staff time for the project, donated services, or space for programming. If you are concerned about raising the match, consider downsizing your project scope and outcomes to the match that you can confidently raise. You could also evaluate whether it would be more feasible to try a longer-term approach to gain financial support for a 2022 project application. It's also essential that your match meets the following EDA funding criteria. Match, whether cash or in kind, should clearly go to the programming offered through your project. This typically includes staff time, space, and supplies. Unallowable match includes most federal funding sources, anything for construction or renovation, or any funding that would go directly to an entrepreneur. All match commitment letters must specify that the matching funds are unencumbered, unrestricted, and committed to the project for the period of performance. This means that match cannot be contingent on any performance goals, it cannot require any annual allocations or approvals, and it must be available at the time of the award. This specification must be in every match letter any partner provides. Otherwise, your application will be technically disqualified. We highly recommend that you work with your partners to draft their commitment letters and take the time to educate them that any cash or in-kind match must follow these specific requirements. Don't let your application get knocked out on a technical failure because you missed these key components and the wording in your match letter. For more details on exact match requirements, take a look at the 2021 Notice of Funding Opportunity. Now that you understand the requirements, it's time to get down to work. Here's a great first step. If you had not taken your Readiness Assessment, we highly recommend you do so right away. We've added it to the page where you access this webinar. The assessment is designed to give you an indication of whether or not you're ready to apply for the Venture Challenge. It will help you assess strengths and identify areas to improve upon for a full application. By filling it out with your partners, you'll get a comprehensive view of your regional assets and gaps, and can get closer to figuring out if Venture Challenge is right for you. Well, that does it. Thank you so much for watching this webinar. We hope all this information has been helpful and that you will download this presentation and use it as a tool as you consider moving forward with a Venture Challenge application. We've included links to resources we've referenced throughout this webinar and encourage you to explore this exciting opportunity and think about what the future holds in store for you and your community. And of course, we encourage you to visit our website at ruralinnovation.us to learn more about our work and sign up for our newsletter so you can stay up to date on news and future events we have planned. Thank you and good luck.